She never thought she'd see him again, not like this. A billionaire in a tailored suit walking into a restaurant where his old school friend was now waiting tables. The same girl who once dreamed of college, of a future beyond the limits placed on her because of the color of her skin. Now reduced to carrying trays and enduring whispers from entitled customers. But what happened next wasn't just a reunion. It became a moment that exposed privilege, power, and a brutal truth about the world we live in. The question is, what did he do when he saw her? Before that night, her life had already been a battle of quiet strength. Her name was Maya, once a bright student with dreams bigger than the small town she grew up in. In school, she had been sharp, outspoken, and determined, qualities that made her stand out, but also made her a target. Teachers praised her intelligence, but classmates whispered behind her back, dismissing her ambitions as unrealistic for someone like her. After graduation, doors that seemed open for others shut quickly for Maya. Scholarships slipped away, job applications went unanswered, and every attempt to climb forward was met with a wall she couldn't move. Race played its part, though few admitted it aloud. When money ran out, she took the only work she could find, waiting tables in an upscale restaurant, where the rich dined and the staff remained invisible. It was there, under the dim glow of chandeliers and the clinking of glasses, that she carried trays with a forced smile, hiding the weight of her disappointment. Yet even in those moments, she reminded herself to stand tall, to hold her dignity close. She had learned that sometimes survival itself was a form of resistance. And then, he walked in. Ethan, her old classmate, now one of the wealthiest men in the city, a man whose life seemed carved from privilege, his path smooth where hers was jagged. Their eyes met across the room, and for a brief second, time stopped. The question wasn't just whether he recognized her, it was what he would do next. The moment Ethan recognized her, something shifted in the air. He wasn't just surprised, he was unsettled. Memories of the past came rushing back. Maya at the top of their class, leading debates, winning awards, and talking about universities she longed to attend. She had been the kind of girl no one could ignore. And now, here she was, wearing an apron, balancing dishes, reduced to someone others barely noticed. But while Ethan's eyes lingered, Maya's focus stayed sharp. She had learned long ago that attention from powerful men often carried hidden costs. She lowered her gaze, tightened her grip on the tray, and carried on with her work as though the recognition never happened. Yet the whispers around the room had already begun. Some customers chuckled under their breath, pointing her out. "Didn't she graduate top of her class?" one murmured. "Guess it didn't get her very far," another sneered, the words dripping with cruel satisfaction. To them, her fall from promise to servitude wasn't a tragedy. It was entertainment. Maya felt the sting but refused to let her expression falter. She walked past them, shoulders squared, dignity intact. Years of enduring microaggressions had taught her the art of silent defiance. But beneath the calm exterior, her heart raced, her chest tightened, and the humiliation clawed at her spirit. Ethan watched, torn between disbelief and discomfort. The billionaire who once had the world handed to him on a silver platter now faced the undeniable truth of how differently their paths had unfolded. He remembered teachers pushing him forward, mentors opening doors, and scholarships offered without hesitation. For Maya, none of those doors had ever truly been open, no matter how hard she knocked. As the night went on, the contrast became impossible to ignore. Ethan dined at a table surrounded by investors and high-profile guests. They laughed loudly, glasses clinking, while Maya circled quietly, taking orders and clearing plates. Each time she passed his table, their eyes met, hers steady, his restless. And then it happened. One of Ethan's associates, a man in a tailored suit with a smug grin, decided to test her patience. He spoke to her with condescension, snapping his fingers for attention, making crude jokes about her career path, and laughing loud enough for the whole table to hear. "From valedictorian to waitress," he sneered. "Life really has a way of putting people in their place." The table erupted in laughter. Ethan stayed silent. Maya froze, every muscle in her body tense. She had faced insults before, endured prejudice in ways most couldn't imagine, but this moment was different. The laughter felt like a weapon slicing through her dignity. She could have walked away. She could have swallowed the pain as she had so many times before. But deep inside, something burned, a reminder of who she was, of everything she had once dreamed of becoming. She straightened her back, looked directly at the man who mocked her, and held his gaze without saying a word. The laughter at the table faltered. Silence spread like a ripple. Even Ethan, for all his wealth and power, felt the weight of her unspoken defiance. Still, the damage was done. Maya had been humiliated in front of the wealthy elite, her worth dismissed by men who believed money defined humanity. What happened next, the choice Ethan made, would determine whether this night ended as just another story of injustice or something much more powerful. The laughter lingered in the air, sharp and cutting, but Maya stood tall, her silence louder than any words. Around the table, glasses still clinked, but eyes shifted nervously. It was one thing to mock someone unseen. It was another to feel the weight of their gaze staring straight through you. Ethan's chest tightened. He had always known the world wasn't fair, but never had the reality hit him with such force. Here was Maya, the girl who once outshined them all, being reduced to a cruel punchline. He thought of the nights she had stayed up late in high school, studying under dim lights because she believed education would change her life. He thought of the dreams she once shared, of universities she longed for, of a career that could have reshaped her family's future. And now, because of a system built to fail her, she was carrying plates for men who laughed at her suffering. For a moment, Ethan did nothing. His hand gripped his glass so tightly he thought it might shatter. His silence made him complicit. He knew it. The billionaire surrounded by privilege was no different than the men who sneered at her, unless he chose to act. And then, he did. He stood up, the scrape of his chair cutting through the room like a blade. The laughter stopped. All eyes turned to him. Ethan looked down at Maya, his voice steady but firm. "She doesn't belong here," he said, but not in the way the others meant. His words carried weight, a declaration that cut through the tension. Maya's heart pounded. For years, no one had spoken up. Not when she was passed over for opportunities, not when her potential was dismissed, not when life dragged her into this place. And now, in front of a room full of power and money, Ethan was making a choice. To acknowledge her worth, or to remain silent and let her dignity be torn apart. The room held its breath. For Maya, this was more than a confrontation. It was the moment that would decide if her story ended as another forgotten injustice, or if someone, finally, would force the world to see her. The silence was suffocating, broken only by the clink of a wine glass somewhere in the back. Ethan's words hung heavy in the air, challenging every smirk and every cruel whisper that had filled the room minutes before. For the first time that night, Maya felt seen, not as a server, not as a target, but as the brilliant woman she had always been. Ethan turned to his associates, his voice steady. "You mock her because you think wealth defines worth. But I remember the truth. She was the best of us. And if she's standing here tonight, it's not because she lacked talent. It's because the system we live in failed her." The table went quiet. No one laughed now. Some looked away, ashamed. Others shifted uncomfortably, unwilling to face the truth in his words. But Maya stood still, her heart racing, her pride burning bright. What Ethan did next changed everything. He asked Maya to meet him after her shift, not with pity, but with respect. He offered her a position, not as charity, but as recognition of what she had earned years ago and had been denied. For the first time in a long while, a door opened. Yet, as Maya walked home that night, a truth echoed louder than the offer. One man's intervention could change her circumstances, but it could not erase the years of injustice she had endured. It could not erase the humiliation, the closed doors, or the systemic barriers still waiting for others like her. And that is the weight of her story. Because for every Maya who gets a second chance, how many more remain unseen, unheard, and left behind? The question lingers long after the story ends, not just about Maya's future, but about all of ours. When will we stop letting the color of someone's skin determine the value of their dreams?